I'm John Hanna for CDTV.net, and we have Brian Basilico joining us again for another one of his talks about marketing. Thanks for joining us again, Brian.
No problem, John. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
Same here. All right, Brian. So let's get into the next topic. Now, I would love to talk to you about. It's pretty much what everybody's doing right now. Well, hopefully, people are like doing about 95% or 99% because everything kind of goes into the Google kind of advertising, which is called the AdWords. When Google started many years ago, I don't want to date myself, but it used to be as simple as like you have your copy and you're ready to go, and you tell them what keywords that you want to put your ads into. Then it's there, and
Right.
all you got to do is bid those clicks, and then you're gonna get your hits, and then hopefully your hits, the expenses that you put into your AdWords will turn into sales. So that's the thing now. Nowadays, I've noticed like last year, when I was playing around with Google AdWords, and it's a little bit more difficult now. Even though you have your landing page all set up and your keywords are there, it still doesn't go through because they say, well, there's several factors that they're looking into now, which is like aside from the landing page, there's keyword relevance and like the other factors. So tell us about how people would be able to get into Google AdWords now and the difference between now and yesteryears.
Sure. Well, the first thing that you really got to understand is how SEO in general works. I mean, and in understanding that, keywords are really important in order to get your site found and relevant. So what Google AdWords does is kind of circumvents just the standard keyword search engine marketing by allowing people to see your ad at the top of the page or the side of the page. And that's really what it boils down to is in the older days, like you said, it was very different. It was less complicated because it pretty much gave you one of two choices, which was you had what's known as the search network, which is somebody goes in and types in a keyword, say they're looking for hot dogs. You type in hot dogs, you can show up in that search network at that time. Well, now there's so many different options. There's the content network, which means that your ad actually shows up on other people's websites. They can set up a perfect example of that is Amazon.com. If you go on Amazon.com and type in hot dog, you'll find books about hot dog, you'll find videos about hot dog, you'll find all different kinds of things. But at the bottom of all of those pages are these ads, and they're called contextual ads that are sitting at the bottom, and it also has ads for hot dogs. They know the region that you're located in, so if somebody types hot dogs and I'm in Chicago, you're in New York, if somebody in New York types in hot dogs and you're set up your ad so that it's showing regionally there, your ad will pop up. So there's so many different places that you can use these ads, but the key thing is measuring the effectiveness of them and getting some, like you said, return on investment, turning it into a sale. So there's been a lot of changes in the way that it works. And one of the other changes too that's happened recently is I have a lot of clients where Google's actually calling them up and saying, "Hey, we could do a better job for you." So they're trying to sell more ads and get your name out there more, but obviously the more ads you have, the more clicks you have, the more it costs. So there's some smart ways to go about it by limiting the scope of what you're doing and getting the best results out of it, but that's different for every business. Does that help so far?
Yes, yes. And the other thing that kind of boils down to is like how a regular small business or even medium-sized business, if they want to spend like $10,000-$20,000 a month on Google AdWords, how can they maximize those clicks? Because like I said, when I was doing it, it's like totally different. There's a lot of things that I need, and as you mentioned earlier, it has to be done with the SEO in mind to be able to just recognize how the Google mechanism works. So for somebody, what are the things that they need to know? I mean, like let's use the hot dog example. So you're a hot dog vendor, the best kosher hot dog in the world. With that commercial on TV, and you want to convert that into like an online AdWord commercial. How would you describe the AdWords text ad for that particular company?
Well, the first thing that you've got to do is, I mean, there's three different pieces to the puzzle. The first one is where do you want to be positioned? And then secondly, what do you want to say? And then thirdly, where do you want to send them to if they actually do click on the ad? So the first thing to look at is, do I want to be number one, two, or three, which usually is showing up at the very, very top of the page. And that's where you're going to end up paying the most money. The way that AdWords work is you bid against other companies. And I've seen this happen numerous times where somebody goes in and bids $2 and then their competition bids 3 and then they bid 4 and on and on and on. And it turns into a bidding war to become number one, which Google loves because you're basically paying them, 400 times more for the same ad that you had before.
Right, right, right.
So, that's one of the challenges is
Well,
you have to decide where you want to be first and what your budget is like to be able to do that. So, just to give you a real basics, in what I tell clients if they're going to get started in AdWords is to look at starting off with $300 a month, which is $10 a day over the course of 30 days. And what can you do with that? And what can you expect in return? Now, obviously, that formula is not going to work for everybody because there's different levels of competition. If you're a contractor, there's X amount of level of competition. If you're a plumber, for example, where I live in Naperville, which is a very, it's a nice subdivision or nice town, but there's a lot of competition for plumbers. You could pay upwards of $20 a click. So if you budget $10 a day, you're not even going to show up. So you have to understand where, what your budget is and where you want to show up. You always want to try to be in the top 3 if you can. One of the things that most people have to be aware of is Google is worth $600+ a share because they own over 70% of all the search engine market. So that means that 30% goes to all the rest of them, Bing, Yahoo, AOL, Ask, whatever it is. So they own that space, number one. Number two, they also own the top of the screen, what we call above the fold. So the first thing that you're going to see is these ads, and then the second thing that you're going to see is maybe the maps and places, and then way, way down below that is where the organic searches come in, and that's your SEO side of things. So you have to say, I want to be above the fold. I'm going to have to either be the top 3 or at least in the top 2 or 3 on the right-hand side because they'll have ads over there too. They're smaller ads to the right. So you have to decide what am I going to spend and where do I want to be. The second thing then is, depending on where you are, how do you make your ad stand out in a way that people read it and compelled to click? And Google has some limitations. There are certain things you can't do inside of their ads. They don't allow you to say, free, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you can, but they do have limits. When you create your ad, they'll turn around and either approve it or disapprove it based on the verbiage that you use inside of it. The other thing, too, is when that ad actually goes to a property, how do we measure what is happening within this? And I'll give you an example. Most people set up Google Ads and then it automatically goes to their home page for their website. That's okay, but the problem is you have a harder time differentiating between what is getting to your homepage website via your Google Ads or what's getting there because of your email marketing or social media or just, people just searching and finding you from a generic standpoint or organically. So what I suggest is then you create separate landing pages for each Google ad so that you can test the waters of which one of my ads is driving the most traffic to my property, which is my website. So an example would be is your website has a homepage that's index.htm. Now you can add a index G01, G02 through G100, whatever you want, so that these ads, you can actually measure the traffic from point A to point B and see which one of these are being the most effective. So it's kind of a trial and error because you never really know what's going to interest people until they see the ads and what's going to get them to go to your property, go to your website, and ultimately give you that sale.
All right, so we're gonna pause for this is gonna be the ending of part 1 on that note because we're gonna be talking about measurement on part 2 of this interview.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian, where can they find you online?
They can find me at b2b-im.com. That's B, the number 2, B, minus sign, I-M as in Mary.com.
Brian Basilico, and I'm John Hanna for cdtv.net. Thank you.